What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. One of the most impressive things about Riot's champion design team is really just the amount of diversity that they've created with the champion pool. They constantly manage to come up with unique and new mechanics for every single kit for each champion release, and it makes for some of the most interesting characters to play in League of Legends. Today's top 10 is looking at some of those super unique champions, but please keep in mind that we are looking at the uniqueness relative to other League of Legends champions only. So our list is not affected by other MOBAs, and we're not taking stuff like Dota 2 into account at all. It's just about how interesting they are to play compared to other champions in League of Legends. And if you enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you don't, hit that dislike. And starting out at number 10, it's Heimerdinger. It was kind of inevitable that he would end up making this list, since there's not that much more unique than having something else fight for you on your behalf. Heimerdinger's turrets make him an absolute zone control king, as it can be extremely punishing to try to fight him in close quarters while he has his turrets set up. You might think he'd be higher up on the list because of this, but to be honest, although the turrets are definitely super unique, his playstyle lacks a little bit. There's quite a few champions you can play that work in a similar kind of zone control way, such as Alawi. They both have persistent traps that deal damage by themselves, and both are strongest when fighting in the zones that they have set up to defend. It was a bit of a toss-up between the two to decide which should take the number 10 spot, but we decided that while both kind of share the zone control theme, Heimerdinger has a lot of other interesting bits in his kit, such as the bouncing stun grenade and the rockets, and the turrets are just so much more interesting than Alawi's tentacles. Number 9 is Twitch. It's actually quite hard to stand out as an AD carry because the end game is pretty much always going to be about stacking attack damage, crit, and attack speed, and just auto-attacking people to death. That being said though, Twitch actually does stand out somewhat for a couple of reasons. His ultimate is a big part of this. While most AD carries are limited to focusing one target at a time, Twitch's ultimate causes his auto attacks to penetrate through all targets in a line. Meaning in a group team fight, he doesn't really need to focus anyone at all, he just kills everyone simultaneously. That alone definitely wouldn't be enough for him to make the list, but the super cool thing is that while Twitch's late game is all about shredding everyone at once, his early and mid game is the exact opposite, and he brings such a unique playstyle to the table. His Q stealth resets on kills, where his passive is active, so rather than taking on multiple targets at once, he actually plays a lot like an assassin, picking off a single target before hunting down a second, or using the stealth reset to escape. That evolving playstyle is seriously awesome, and something that's really rare to see in a League of Legends champion, and I hope it's an area of design that Riot decides to look at more in the future. There's loads of potential for it in every single role, and Twitch pulls it off fantastically. Number 8 is our first jungler, Nunu. And let's be kind of honest, his kit isn't entirely anything special. His ultimate is super cool and deadly in the right hands, and having a second smite that also heals you is pretty cool too, but it is a little bit simplistic in terms of design. What really makes Nunu stand out is how differently his kit forces him to play. He doesn't have a kit packed with damage like Lee Sin, or a chunk of huge crowd control like a Mumu or something. Nunu is the type of jungler that has to invade, he has to steal objectives, and he has to be a general pain in the ass for the enemy jungler in order to be powerful. His sustain and smite means he can invade really safely and take pretty much whatever he wants. If he uses those invades to get deep wards down, he'll be able to plan his route to counter any gank the enemy jungler wants to make by simply slowing him down and keeping him distracted. It's crazy how he can fuse a game so much with just such a simple kit, but it really makes him super interesting and bring a very unique style. For number 7, we've gone with the reworked Malzahar. It's kind of insane that a rework which essentially just shifted his abilities around made him so much more interesting to play. Pre-rework, Malzahar was all about spamming abilities and locking down a target with his ultimate and bursting them down, and at that point before the rework his voidlings were a cool touch to add some extra damage, but the lack of ways to control them meant that it didn't really feel like you could actually take advantage of their power. With the rework changes, his W now allows you to summon a voidling whenever you have it off cooldown, and that voidling can spawn additional ones based off of certain conditions. Instead of feeling like his kit is just spam spells and get bonus voidling damage, he's now about using your abilities to help out your voidlings instead. He works in both solo lanes and in the jungle, AP or AD, making him incredibly flexible in terms of what to build, but the core idea is still the same. Manage your voidlings to summon as many as you can, and then shred people apart. His passive change has been a godsend too, and although periodically resisting crowd control and damage is kind of ridiculous, it means he has a way to stay alive in lanes where he would have been totally unplayable, and it also gives him power to not get countered during his ultimate. Props to Riot for figuring this one out. It's probably the most successful mage rework so far, introducing new players to Malzahar while keeping what the old Malzahar mains really loved. And taking our number 6 spot, we have Kindred, and they boast another one of these evolving playstyles kind of like Twitch. Kindred is initially all about that early pressure, using mobility and slows along with high damage to snowball lanes through powerful ganks. The mix of single target and area of effect damage makes Kindred one of the best junglers in the game. And although most early game power picks tend to be a little bit worse off late game, Kindred still holds the power to dominate the late game too. As the game progresses, Kindred scales up to become a force almost comparable to actual AD carries, along with the power to save allies from death, and enemies too, and jungle creeps. Kinda crazy, right? Lamb's Respite is one of the most powerful ultimate abilities in the game when used correctly, while still allowing for reasonable counterplay because of the need to stay inside the circle to gain the benefit. And on top of that, she does bring a very unique playstyle of being an AD carry in the jungler. One of the coolest plays I've ever seen was a Kindred that dashed over the Baron pit wall and used Lamb's Respite to prevent the Baron from dying, stopping the enemy team from finishing it off and giving it just enough time for the rest of her team to catch up and engage. On top of all that epicness, throw Kindred's awesome spiritual yin-yang design and you end up with a beautiful and powerful champion that is well deserving of a spot in our top 10. And kicking off the top 5, we have Orianna. You know a champion's going to be unique when you really just can't understand what you're supposed to do when you first play them. Orianna's abilities all revolve around her ball and its position, and that can be incredibly weird to get used to. It means she's incredibly difficult to play effectively, but also really rewarding once you finally figure her out. Orianna as a champion really tests your ability when it comes to decision making. Should you use your ball to poke or keep it for resistances? Combo your ult with an ally by shielding them, or maybe sneak it over a wall and use it directly. It's quite impressive that Riot managed to create a champion that doesn't really target enemies with abilities, instead opting to have her abilities all occur around the ball and simply give her a way to control it. Orianna is one of the staple mages of competitive play and ranked, and she's never too weak for a good player to make use of her. A fed Orianna will carry games with her insane area of effect damage, and a weak Orianna can still contribute at least a little bit through shielding, slows, and her crowd control. She can farm safely with her auto attacks or zone an enemy away completely with her ball manipulation. She can play defensively, shielding allies, or she can terrorize enemies with her burst. Orianna is one of the highest utility and most versatile mages in the game, and totally unlike anything else in League of Legends. Next up at number 4, it's actually Shaco. New ways to abuse Shaco's mix of strategy and deception are invented every day, and it all comes down to the awesome way that his kit comes together. He has all this damage, he's got his traps, he's got a clone, and he has all this sneakiness. How the player ties that all together is what makes Shaco so unique. You really can just invent your own playstyle for this guy. Only one thing ever really remains the same. Shaco really wants to kill stuff, to the point where he's one of the only champions in the game where players willingly sacrifice Flash for the added kill power of Ignite. His invades are legendary, along with his ability to sneak dragons or enemy jungle camps by taking them with his box traps. He's also a pretty solid duelist, and there's not many champions that a skilled Shaco player will lose to once he reaches level 6. He does require a lot of game knowledge and foresight to use properly, but that gameplay of all of these mind games and strategical decisions that Shaco brings really create a very unique champion, and once you're used to his tricks, you can unleash some insane plays. Sprinting into the number 3 spot is Singed, and most of you probably saw this one coming because it's hard to argue that there's much more unique in this game than Singed, although it does take a specific type of player to find him interesting to play. If you enjoy proxying waves of creeps and running around while spamming your laugh button, Singed is the guy for you. Our favorite mad scientist doesn't fight conventionally, he prefers to leave a poison trail all over the map to kill champions and minions alike, and if you're getting too far away, he'll just pick you up and flip you back again. He's quite powerful as a tank because of his disruptive abilities, although he does prefer to split push rather than teamfight, making him quite hard to deal with. Singed just brings such a unique and interesting way to play the game that is unlike any other champion. It's important not to let him distract you too much though, as it can be pretty frustrating to lock him down in fights. Just remember, never chase a Singed. And at number 2 we have a relatively new champion with Bard. He's a pretty troll champion, but he's also ridiculously powerful in the right hands. Bard really innovates and essentially defines the roaming support playstyle because of his ability to leave health packs down for his laner before embarking on that magical journey across the map, collecting charms and assists. Support is one of the most neglected roles in terms of the player base, but releases like Bard have really attracted more players to try it out. He's really exciting to play. Nothing really feels better than landing that game-changing ultimate on the enemy team or saving an ally at the last second. Magical Journey alone enables some fantastic clutch plays to surprise the enemy team or to make a quick escape, turning every piece of terrain on the map into a portal that can be used to move quickly from one place to another. His Q is nothing to sniff at either, being essentially a Lux binding that can stun 2 targets instead of just snaring them, along with the power to pin people against a wall if there's no second target around. Overall, he's a super cool champion that the community has grown really fond of, and for very good reason. And here we are at the end of our top 10 with our number 1 most interesting and unique champion, Azir. The Emperor's been a staple of competitive play since not long after his release, and with that much raw playmaking power, it's not hard to see why. Azir's abilities flow together in such an incredible way, and his successful Shurima Shuffle is one of the most amazing things to watch happen in League of Legends. What really blows my mind is how little mechanics Azir's kit actually borrows from other champions, something that's just so hard to do in a game with so many diverse abilities. His passive tower construction has nothing even close to it in the game, enabling him to lock down a lane single-handedly, and the closest comparison we can think of to his soldier control would maybe be Orianna's ball, but it's honestly not even close. Rather than casting abilities, the soldiers replace Azir's auto attacks, making him one of the rare attack speed mages and giving him a hybrid between sustained and burst damage. He can also remain mobile with his dash, enabling him to sweep behind the enemy team at high speeds in spectacular fashion. He can wave clear, dual, poke, or combo whatever his team needs, and with his power to adapt to any situation, he has one of the highest skill ceilings in the game as well. Azir is one of the only hyper carry mages in League of Legends, and he's unlike anything else in the game at the moment. Truly unique, extremely interesting to play, and a masterpiece of design, makes Azir deserving of our number 1 spot. And that marks the end of our top 10 most interesting and unique champions list. Really hope you guys enjoyed this one and would love to hear your thoughts on either the champions we mentioned or who you think maybe should have made the cut. That's gonna be it from me. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.